What's up guys, it's Scott here and welcome back to FudgeMuppet. Today I've got a brand new Skyrim build to share with you guys, and this one is for all you Imperial lovers out there. This is the Lawbringer, the hammer of Imperial justice. The Lawbringer isn't just a nameless soldier in the Imperial army, he's a vigilante taking justice into his own hands when the Empire fails to stand up for themselves. The Lawbringer is an Imperial trained battlемage who left the army to fight the Thalmor on his own terms. He reveres the gods, Akatosh and Shazar in particular. He shares no particular hatred for elven kind, but he refuses to abide the Thalmor and simply play into their schemes for total domination. The Lawbringer has faith in the Empire despite how far they've fallen. Under the might of his great warhammer and his dragonborn powers, he aims to return them to prosperity. His unique weapon, the Champion's Cudgel, is more than just a giant hammer. It also has a monstrously powerful chaos damage enchantment, allowing him to unleash magical elemental fury with every swipe and swing. Based on the Imperial Battlemages in Oblivion, he embodies that Cyrodiilic feel with his reminiscent aesthetic, but with a little more of a gnarly twist. If his cudgel isn't causing chaos damage, his destruction spells are, and he is a master of all the elements. He's prepared to tackle all enemies preying on their weakness. He has now come to bring justice to the unruly province of Skyrim. Before we get into it, be sure to check out the timestamps in the description below for help navigating the video. With that said, let's kick things off with the Lawbringer's race, standing stone, and stats. The Lawbringer is an Imperial, and this means he can use the voice of the Emperor to calm a target for 60 seconds. He also has an innate knack for finding more gold. As an Imperial, he gets a plus 10 boost to restoration as well as plus 5 to destruction, enchanting, and heavy armor, all of which this build uses. The Atronach stone is the best statistically and will help you with all the mages, but if you're sick of the Atronach Stone and you're looking for something a little fresh, the Tower Stone is another great option for this build, allowing you to instantly open Expert or Lower Lock once a day. We basically chose this as it's a nice callback to the alteration spells of Oblivion, as well as fitting in well as a extra magical ability for a little bit of utility when going through dungeons or getting out of sticky situations. As for stat spread, put 40% into health, 40% into magicka, and then 20% into stamina. And don't worry too much about the lowish stamina, as your respite perk in the restoration tree will compensate for that. The Lawbringer was born in the port city of Anvil in the Clovian lands of Western Cyrodiil. He was born in a time shortly after the end of the Great War, and Anvil itself was in ruins, being heavily sieged by the Thalmor not too long ago. He was born to a single mother, youngest of 3 children. His father had died shortly before his birth due to disease. Unfortunately, the battlefields of the Great War had open wounds accepting blood and dirt. Many, like his father, would not die by the sword, but sickly in bed. At age 8, his oldest brother of 14 was stabbed to death for stealing. The family were low on money, like many, struggling to survive in the aftermath of the Great War, but this was an all-new level of despair for the family. His mother worked in a tavern by the ports as a waitress serving drinks, leaving the Lawbringer and his older sister at their home. Well, it wasn't really their home, they rented a room. Their actual home was destroyed years ago, and they would never have the funds to rebuild it. It had been in their family for generations. When the Lawbringer was 15, his sister, aged 17, eloped with a merchant's son, leaving the Lawbringer with his mother alone. He barely saw his mother anymore. She had turned to whoring as a way of making money to fuel her newfound skooma addiction, which came in the years following her eldest's death. The Lawbringer was largely on his own. He would get harassed for debtors looking for his mother, even received a beating once or twice, but he was used to the rough life. The Lawbringer himself had been in more fights than he could remember. He even killed a man once. A year ago, a pedophile tried to bugger him at the ports late at night while he was out looking for his mother. The Lawbringer, however, managed to grab a brick and knock him out. He then tossed that trash in the sea. The drowned body washed up dead a few days later. For food, the Lawbringer mostly had to clean chimneys, chop wood, basically any job he could get a septum for. He did sometimes have to resort to stealing. It was a game of survival after all. One day, however, a crier came by, accompanied by Imperial soldiers beckoning the call of recruitment. The Empire were trying to recuperate the losses their legions had sustained during the Great War. Even 15 years after it, they were still trying to restore their legions to strength. The Lawbringer jumped at the opportunity. He barely knew his mother anymore, and he wanted out, a chance at life. He signed up immediately and was drafted into the military. It all began with a long march to the Heartland, an encampment by the side of Lake Prumare. He had never left Anvil before, let alone Colovia. He passed Kvatch and Skingrad, marveling at the world he did not know, but nothing in his life ever filled him with more awe than the sight of the white gold tower itself, a spire of beauty bursting from a sprawling city across the lake. The camp they had arrived at had young boys from all over the Empire, some of vastly different clothing and some of other races. They, however, were far and few between. 2 high elves in black and gold robes were inspecting recruits, presumably Justiciars, permitted to look recruits over, rooting out any potential heretics. They soon passed by him, barely noticing a disheveled boy in sandals in desperate need of a bath. The Lawbringer eyed them, pulling another recruit out of line for questioning. They looked like total shitheads, the Lawbringer thought. An officer called all the recruits to attention, organizing them into lines leading up to a tent with scribes and soldiers, with desks filled with paper. The Lawbringer soon reached the tent. He gave his name and his place of birth, as well as his birth date, which, to be honest, was probably a week off. A man to his right stood staring at him, dark-coloured Imperial armour, with a teal-coloured hood pulled up, a cloak of the same colour trailing behind. The scribe told him which division to report to, and the Lawbringer returned, but the man in the hood yelled stop. The Lawbringer complied, turning to face him anxiously. The hooded man held out his palm and concentrated as a faint glow emanated. He closed his eyes, concentrating, and then opened them after 20 seconds of silence. This one has potential. I'll have him assigned to my division. This was Pericles, a respected captain of the Imperial Battlemage division. He detected within the Lawbringer significant reserves of magicka, untouched due to the lack of skill. This is where the Lawbringer would be best utilized, in the Imperial Battlemage division. Over the next 10 years, the Lawbringer trained as an Imperial Battlemage under Captain Pericles, who was his greatest friend and mentor. Pericles taught him his wisdom and philosophies, the value of the divines, and the glory that is the Empire, or at least the glory it could be restored to. The Empire was a symbol of the divines, a symbol of peace and justice, prosperity for all. And too, the Lawbringer adopted these philosophies. The Great War and slaughter at the hands of the Aldmeri Dominion had only caused his father's death and his horrible upbringing. If the Lawbringer were to raise a family, it would be in a better world than this. This was a worthy goal of striving for, a purpose other than to survive. Pericles was the father he never had. The Lawbringer focused on destruction and restoration, the 2 most practical skills in fighting, along with the ability to wield a weapon. He became quite accomplished over the years, bringing justice to the regions they were sent, ending bandits and marauders, quelling violence erupting in towns and cities, clearing necromancers and monsters. They were keeping the peace, bringing justice and law. It would be the 200th year of the 4th era where they would return to the Imperial City on leave. The Lawbringer loved the Imperial City, the statues of mighty heroes, the symbol of Imperial greatness. He was filled with a sense of pride and purpose. He had nothing but thanks for the Imperial Legion for what it had given him in life, a purpose and a father. After a few days of celebrating and holidaying with his comrades, he noticed that Pericles had not been seen for 2 days. A comrade of his rushed to get the Lawbringer and bring him to one of the main squares. It was an execution, and Pericles was kneeling beneath the headsman. A Thalmor Justicia, accompanied by Imperial soldiers, announced to the crowd that they had found a heretic within Imperial ranks, a worshipper of Talos, the false god. They stated that the only punishment for this treason is death. For his service to the Empire, he would receive a quick one. Pericles was asked to speak his last words. He saw the Lawbringer and smiled at him, followed by screaming, "For the Empire! For the 9 divines!" He was put to death moments later. The Lawbringer had lost so much. He was destroyed. He memorized the face of that Justicia and became obsessed with him. This was a dark time for the Lawbringer. Imperial law wasn't enough. It was the law of the divines that should dictate action, the law of the 9 divines. Talos would be ashamed of the Empire, and the Lawbringer would fix it. He started by isolating and smashing the skull of the Justicia that executed Pericles, and then he fled the Imperial City, going from town to town, city to city, saving good people from the Thalmor's grasp, liberating their prisons and torture camps for so-called heretics. But it was getting too hot, and the Lawbringer had to flee north to Skyrim. He would be able to lie low in the chaos of Skyrim for a while, but of course he is captured at the border. The Lawbringer was confused by his capture at the hands of the Imperials. He figured he deserved this. Perhaps the gods were punishing him. Perhaps what he had done as a vigilante was in fact not the Divine's will. Perhaps he had become more about vengeance than justice. When he decided to take the fate of the Empire and its laws and heritage into his own hands, he reconciled the possibility that the very people he protected would potentially see him as a criminal. But when he escapes Helgen, he is more than certain that this was the god's will. He was meant to witness Alduin escape, taking him on a new direction for his life. As far as he is concerned, he is an arbiter of divine law. He will protect those affected by the political conflicts, he will act with goodwill, and above all else, he will act by guidance of the law, the divine law. Men could be corrupted and influenced by the likes of evil, such as the Thalmor, unlike the purity of the divines. The Lawbringer is a worshipper of the 9 divines and a student of magic, and he will use this to fight for a prosperous empire. He despises evil, or at least his perception of what is evil, meaning the Daedra and the Dark Brotherhood, who offer little good to the Empire. They will only encounter the justice brought by his hammer. When he discovers his role as the prophesied Dragonborn, he will embrace it wholeheartedly, using that power and influence to bring the divine law into fruition. His fate is proof in his eyes that he was justified in keeping faith with Typer Septim, despite the Thalmor's attempts to erase him from history. He will continue that legacy, becoming the new Imperial Dragonborn, set on returning the Empire to greatness. As for factions, of course, he will side with the Imperials. The Lawbringer realizes that he must be a part of the Empire to in fact help and guide it to glory. However, it is not entirely black and white. He sympathizes for the Stormcloaks and Ulfric's hatred of the elves, but the good of the Empire rides on this civil war. If for the meantime Talos worship needs to be given up, at least publicly, until the Thalmor threat is dwarfed by a successful empire, he will consider it necessary for the greater good. He will also follow the main storyline in the Dragonborn DLC, acquiring more and more power as a Dragonborn and etching himself into the histories as an Imperial hero. He will also join the Dawnguard in the Dawnguard DLC, ridding Skyrim of the Vampire Plague. The vampires, after all, are an affront to Arcane, one of the divines. He will also destroy the Dark Brotherhood, purging Tamriel of its evil plight. And then he will follow the College of Winterhold questline and join the Companions to help both sides of his Battlemage combat style. Of course, the werewolf power, when it first presented to him, will feel like a powerful weapon to use, but he soon realizes that this is a mistake when he talks more with Kodlak and wishes to rid himself of the curse. Now that we know a bit about the Lawbringer's backstory, role-playing, and factions, let's have a look at how this will affect his skills, his perks, his shouts, and his overall playstyle. The main skills for this build will be two-handed destruction, restoration, heavy armor, and enchanting. Before we look deeper into what perks to take from each of those skills, here are a list of spells and shouts to pick up along your travels. Destruction will be a huge part of your combat prowess, so having a strong arsenal is a big deal here. The Lawbringer will have a diverse range of destruction spells spanning the elements. This will give him the edge against any target. Get Chain Lightning as your primary shock spell, and then Fireball and Ice Storm for fire and frost. Spells like Wall of Flames, Wall of Frost, and Wall of Storms are also very powerful and make for a great way to zone your enemies, preventing escape or stopping them from getting too close depending on the situation. Also, the Elemental Cloak spells are great defensively, so use whichever one matches the element you're using in combat. The emphasis here is to use all of the elements, and this theme will transfer into your melee combat too. As for restoration, healing spells like Close Wounds are great, then grab any anti-undead spells you find. Sticking to the elemental theme also works for shouts. Shouts aren't essential to the playstyle, but Ice Form and Fire Breath work nicely. But with that cleared up, here are the Lawbringer's essential perks. First up, we have Two-Handed, and the Lawbringer is no rookie in this skill. As a vigilante delivering justice with no backup, you can bet your ass he knows how to handle himself in a fight. When criminals betray the Imperial law, he takes it upon himself to pass the sentence with a crushing blow of his giant warhammer, the Champion's Cudgel. From the Two-Handed skill tree, grab the middle branch all the way up to Warmaster, and then all 3 ranks of Skull Crusher. Skull Crusher is a big one for boosting your warhammer strikes. Each blow will ignore 75% of the foe's armor rating once this perk is maxed out. So, wearing layers of plate armor will do nothing for your enemies, and they will cave immediately from the impact. Next, we have Destruction, and as a battle mage, this is the Lawbringer's other fundamental offensive skill. Should criminals attempt to evade justice, fleeing the Cudgel's judgment, the Lawbringer will smite them down with one of his Fire, Frost, or Shock spells. From the Destruction skill tree, take absolutely everything except for Rune Master. This includes all 3 of the augmentation perks, perks Augmented Frost, Flames, and Shock. Each of these will add 50% more damage to the respective spells. On top of this, these perks will also power up the Chaos enchantment on your Warhammer, which makes the champion's cudgel even better. A good and disciplined Imperial Battlemage doesn't pour all of their magicka into destruction. A true soldier protects themselves and their brothers and sisters, and that's where Restoration comes in. With this skill on top of his enchanted heavy armor, the Lawbringer will never fall short of delivering justice. From the Restoration skill tree, we suggest getting everything except for Master Restoration, Ward Absorb, and Avoid Death. Respite is a standout perk here, as it will allow your healing spells to return your lost stamina, giving you a second wind to unleash a new wave of power attacks. As I mentioned, an Imperial soldier isn't complete without a sturdy set of armor. He wears this armor effectively and with great pride. From the heavy armor skill tree, take the full left branch. With conditioning, heavy armor will be weightless in your inventory and will also stop it from hindering your movement speed. And of course, we're going to pick the best perks for enchanting to maximize this guy's damage with his two-handed weapon and allow him to use destruction spells over and over. We are going straight from the beginning all the way up to extra effect down the middle branch. With all of this in mind, the Lawbringer's playstyle will involve starting off with his hands full of destruction spells, using the range to send out area spells, elemental walls, and projectiles. Then, when the enemies come close, an elemental cloak can be put on before bringing out the big boy, the Warhammer. If health or stamina gets low at any point, quickly switch out to Restoration for healing. He is supposed to instantly destroy any weak enemies that charge at him, weakening the strong ones, and by the time the stronger ones reach him, he has a elemental cloak on, causing lots of damage, as well as a whirlwind of hammer strikes. As for the Lawbringer's gear, he'll be decked out mostly in the Imperial aesthetic, with Imperial armor, braces, and boots. Top it all off with a shrouded hood to really give off the vigilante vibe. You can get that hood from the Dark Brotherhood Sanctuary once you've killed them all. Don't forget a ring and a necklace of your choice for enchanting. Put Fortify two-handed on the gauntlets, boots, ring, and necklace. This is a must, as the champion's cudgel cannot be smithed up. Then, put Fortify Destruction on the ring, necklace, and chest piece. In the free spots, you have multiple options. Some good choices are Magicka Regen or Magicka boosting enchantments. Even Stamina Regen could help you if you prefer using melee predominantly. And there you have it, guys. Subscribe to FudgeMuppet and give the video a like if you enjoyed it. In the description, you can find timestamps for video navigation, as well as all the links to our social media accounts, our Patreon, and our brand new Twitch channel, where we are now streaming 3 times a week. We'd love to see you guys there, and any support or interaction means the world to us. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I've been Scott, and I will see you next time.